Good morning, everyone. My name is Abram Andrews. I'm the director here at VetBizCentral. I apologize for the delay. We had some technical issues. We wanted to get some handouts to you guys. As soon as we are able to, though, we'll get those uploaded into the system. So then that way, all of you can view the handouts. But right now, what I'd like to do is go ahead and introduce our guest speaker today, who is Tariq Maraba of Rymys Technology Consultants. And Tariq will be giving today's training, going over what the VA buys in Michigan. So without further ado, Tariq, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Abram. Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year. Abram, I'm going to turn off the video so we can turn off the video for a bit now and just focus on the webinar and the content. So, good morning, everyone. Okay, so as Abram was saying, my name is Tariq Maraba, but I want to also thank Abram Andrews for the VetBiz solution in terms of getting this information into your hands. So, the first and foremost, Tariq Maraba, Rymys Technology Consultants. This wouldn't happen without my partnership with VetBiz and with regards to Abram. First off, Happy New Year, everyone. 2022 is going to be a big year. Kicking off this year with this webinar is a very important component. I'm even going to show you a few things with regards to how data, when we're talking about what VA buys in Michigan, of course, it's the same concept as to what VA buys in any other state, which we will be talking about Ohio and Indiana also as well. But as far as like the in-depth use of data, which is the most important concept. So it's not necessarily what they buy, but it's, when you get that information, how do you use that data to really understand and answer that question? So, and Aaron, thank you so much for putting this together and really getting us together in terms of the focus of really teaching the veteran business community and really help them understand that the importance of I got VA verified, what next? And you have to understand that getting verified is not just, that doesn't guarantee you a contract. And my background, I'm going to let you know a little bit about it, was that I worked for 6 years as the small business, I guess you could say the business analyst and the lead trainer for the VA Small Business Office on the education and training team. And I was contacted, when I sat down with my director and the executive director and team members, I was presented the question, what does the VA buy and how do small businesses do business with the VA? And so based on the research I did, it was all about data. I mean, that's the underlying component is data. And to answer that question, and then of course, train the small business community, I had to really understand the information. And it's not just taking shortcuts. It's really doing the tedious stuff that you don't want to do and really look at it. I'm going to show you a neat trick today, or a nice little toy that I got used to over last year and still learning it as it's very detailed program. Some of you may have heard of it. Some of you can do it maybe with Tableau or really nice Excel spreadsheets, data dashboards. But I liked Microsoft Power BI. I got started getting used to that, and it's still in the much learning phase. But never stop learning, because that's where you get better at using information. Our mission is to work with companies like VetBiz and to help the small business community grow and be a one-stop shop that, with regards to certain things. This is a quick lead-in for next week's training with regards to schedules. So when I say our role, our vision is to become a one-stop shop, when a company gets on a schedule, they're going to need marketing, because getting on a scheduled contract does not guarantee you sales. You have to market. So that's what we're trying to do. And our vision within the next 5 years is to grow into that leader, to be able to offer you a very affordable way of moving forward, because there's a lot of scenarios out there that are very expensive, and today's economy requires us to be more, better on the front end and easy and work with on the back end, but offer you the services that get you there. That's the key. Today, we're going to talk about the competition and your customer, interpreting data for government contracting, and deep dive into data. We're going to have some polling questions throughout the lessons today, so please take note of some of the information that's shared. The purpose is not to stumble you or to trip you up, but it's to get you to really think about some of the answers and the content we're talking about. And that's the important thing, is that we just want to make sure you understand with regards to how it's being interpreted. Am I speaking the right stuff, or are we a little off and we need, you have a question, do we miss an answer type of thing. So today's objectives will be to understand the importance of knowing your customer. So I've asked clients and customers and just small businesses over the years, do you know who your competition is in the commercial world? Absolutely. Do you know who your competition is in the federal world? Well, there may be one or two. I'm like, well, no, there's not maybe one or two. There's several who may be already winning your contract. So we need to find out why. We need to find out what it is about them, and we have to really understand if our business, and it comes back to if your foundation is solid. So knowing your customer, knowing your competition, understanding the value of data, understanding the importance of organizing data for strategic development purposes, and understand how to use available resources to drive your competitive advantage. You're going to hear competitive advantage used interchangeably with the concept of the capability statement. I'm sure you've all heard of what that is. But that's a competitive advantage component that really puts your best foot forward to say, hey, this is what we are doing, and this is why we are better at doing it. Okay, that's the competitive advantage in terms of what is it that reinforces that statement. And data helps you really align your foundation of company. So let's talk about your customer. Well, first of all, your customer is the VA. It's one of the largest procurement and supply agencies of the federal government. Operates a nationwide system of hospitals, clinics, regional offices, veteran integrated networks, and benefit processing centers, and so forth. Now, the VA, as it sounds and such, we just touched upon clinics, regional offices, hospitals, integrated service networks, VISNs, where there's hospitals and networks. But the VA is more than that. Okay, 75, 80% are hospitals, clinics, et cetera, maybe 70%, et cetera. But you have 20 to 30% of other areas of focus: IT, construction and facilities management, maintenance, the cemetery administration, the benefits administration for college tuition, home mortgages, and insurances and so forth. There's so much more. So it's not just when you hear the VA, it's just one thing. No, there's a lot. They buy billions of dollars a year. And you want to be a part of that procurement. But let me tell you something, they're just not going to give you a contract. You need to be able to fulfill. In today's world, it's even more and more difficult in that sense.
Tarek,
So yes, sir.
We've got a question from Ms. Lawson. She was asking, when you said the market during the last slide, when you mentioned the market, she says, what does that look like when working with businesses, basically with the federal government? And Ms. Lawson, if you are able to unmute yourself, so then that way we can go ahead and ask that question, so you can ask that question. You're unmuted on my end. Are you there, Ms. Lawson? Says you're self-muted. All right. All right, Tarek. I guess when she gets the opportunity to come on, she will. I don't know if read that question correctly that she put in the chat. When you say market, what does that look like when wanting businesses, when working with the federal government? I think that may have been what she was trying to say.
Yeah, let me see. She's also noted something unable to mute. Yes, question is correct. When you say market, okay, what does that look like when wanting business with the federal? Okay, I'm going to try to interpret the wanting part with the federal government in terms of doing business market. Okay, marketing. I think she's talking about marketing.
Yes.
And that means, okay, so let's talk about marketing. Marketing is basically advertising. So depending on what your business is, whether it's a service or a product or a combination of both, if it's a product like a shampoo or a sanitizer or something of that nature, there's also a different way to market it. Again, we're going to talk about GSA next week in terms of schedules, but we're also going to make a quick note about GSA eBuy and GSA Advantage. We're also going to take a look at in February 15th, we have a webinar coming up about federal retail sales. Well, marketing is all about advertising your product or your service. Now, how you do that in terms of contract-based awards that are regulated by the FAR and federal retail products that are basically products that are put on the shelves in the veteran canteen stores, which are in the hospitals and clinic. The hospitals, 220 of them, Army Air Force exchanges, like the big Walmarts on base, those kinds of things. So marketing is important. Now, the question you had, I believe, was how do you do that in the federal space? Well, first of all, there's a fine line. Do you do too much where you piss off the contracting officers and the directors, or do you not do enough where nobody knows you exist, even though they kind of saw your marketing or your tool, your ad, or your email or whatever it is, and they kind of just brushed it off? So there's a strategy behind that based on the conversations and the relationships you start building. And so basically your marketing strategy is all about building relationships, because that's the key, is building the relationships.
All right, Tarek, we've got a question from Abby. Abby, what's your question? You've been unmuted. Abby,
what is the question?
Your hand is raised. Did you have a question? All right, I guess she doesn't have a question. Can all of you hear me? I'm going to unmute everyone, make sure that everyone can hear. Can everyone hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes. I can hear you.
Right. Perfect, because 2 people I called on and didn't get a response, so I got a little concerned there.
Everyone's good.
All right, go right ahead, Tarek. Sorry for jumping in.
No worries. I want to get past the first couple slides, everyone, because there's a lot of juicy stuff here, but you're asking wonderful questions. And actually, it's the most important component and on top of data and doing business, because marketing is anything from shaking hands to a hello on the phone to a Zoom meeting. You're marketing, you're getting yourself known. 1 time, the memory goes away. 2 times, okay, a little bit longer, but the memory goes away. You hit 5, 6, 7 times, 8, 9, 10, and it's almost like, man, you're always around, or I always see your notes, or I see your billboard ad, your email. I actually clicked on your link, and hey, you got some nice stuff on your website. What does it mean in actuality? That's marketing, is getting the point out. Sometimes I talk about those those Geico or Progressive commercials or something that that sometimes it seems so annoying, and it's almost like, yeah, but they're making people remember those ads because they make them kind of off the cuff, oddball type of advertisement, because it keeps it kind of keeps the theme or the notion of what it is in your mind. The the back of your mind. And that's kind of the same with the contracting officers. But in the bottom line with the contracting officers is they want to buy something for their audience, which are either the veterans or the military or the non-contract military or whomever, depending on the agency, whether it be the FAA or the EPA or the FDA or the GSA or the VA. These agencies have buyers for their audience, their customers. You go into a Safeway, you go into a Kroger, you go into a Publix, they buy their groceries for their customers to come in and buy them. Well, just like that, those customers do that. So what does the VA buy in Michigan? So that's a big loaded question because there's a lot of moving parts as to who are the contracting officers buying for Michigan? What's going on in Michigan? Are they doing a rebuild? Is it small or large? And it's not just Michigan. So this is a component of it, but it could be a national contract where some renovation is being done in Michigan hospitals where IT is needed, construction is needed, management is needed, override of medical databases is needed, medical insurance policies, upgrades. There's a number of things. So that's why know who your customer is in terms of know what the VA buys. Sometimes you be living in Michigan and you can look at what someone's buying in Ohio and say, hey, why don't they need it in Michigan? They haven't bought it yet in Michigan. That's an open door to kind of bring that notion. So that's based on how much time we actually have to be able to go down that path. But that's a moment of a strategy that could say, hey, these guys buy in Ohio, let's go to Michigan and see why they're not buying. You're not buying because of this. Well, we have a solution for you that will allow you to buy that because here's how we do it. And here we have a proven track record of doing it. That's key information of utilizing data. So guys, we're going to blow through the rest of the whole thing. So please ask your questions and we're available after as well. There's a lot of information. So let's look at, let's see where we are. Okay. So the competition is basically the veteran population, compensation and pensions, construction, education, insurance, general operating expenses, Medicare, total expenditures, etc. There's just a lot of expenditures in Michigan, okay? And the VA buys a lot of that, just to give you an idea. With regards to the profile of small businesses, this is a lot of competition. 269 VA verified small business, STVSBs, VSBs, but you're also competing with 902,131 small businesses in total. Why is that important? Because VA is vets first, but not vets only. So there are strategies of how, and I've seen non-VA verified companies be the prime on a contract with a VA verified company as the sub, and then they switch because it's an open source contract. So if it's an open source contract, but you want to get in to the point where you're in the discussion of writing the requirements, getting your being a certified company, and being part of that market research done by the contracting officers that say, hey, this contract is going to be good for us, the rule of two, and there are 2 or more STVSBs, VSBs that do this. So I'm going to make it a set aside and pick this company based on lowest price technically acceptable or best value. So there's variations and so forth, and you want to be part of that discussion. So it's good to know the data, but it's also good to know where you fit in that component. When we had a training last year about prime contract holders and subcontractors, and it was a massive awakening that, believe it or not, a subcontractor is just as important as a prime. Yes, the prime contractor holds the priority, the management of the contract, but the subcontractor provides a proponent of the services to offer the client that the prime doesn't have. So without you, they don't have the full capability of fulfilling the requirement. So that component is very important, and that also gets your foot in the door. So knowing the data is the biggest thing. let's talk about, I just picked the top three NAICS codes in FY21. The reason for this is it's a detailed step-by-step process of getting data either from SAM.gov using the ad hoc contracting component, building your own databases of information, and of course understanding the NAICS codes that are purchased in Michigan or wherever based on your NAICS code. So you pick your NAICS code, put it in the system, and find out who's buying what where, and that's a key thing. So knowing this, if you notice, we're talking about NAICS code, we're also talking about PS code, product service code. That's data, okay? So we're looking at expenditures and the information. You look at the contracts, commercial, institutional, building, construction. Sounds to me like they're building something or renovating something, and renovating a lot if they're spending a lot of money. Electrotherapeutic apparatus manufacturing, surgical appliances, so they're doing a lot. So you see if you fit in somewhere. Even education and training of doctors and medical staff to utilize equipment or to utilize services or systems in something. So there's a lot of different components that go together. So what we're going to do here now is we are going to go to a polling question. So yes, this is a test. I'm going to pop this up on your screen. You get to see the, okay. So everyone, you're going to see this on the screen in about 2 seconds if you haven't already. There you go. True or false? Good data helps businesses develop effective strategies. Now, I didn't give you the sentence specific. I didn't give you the answer specific, I guess, but I think I gave you the answer direct. I mean, data is data. It's either good data or bad data. So good data helps businesses develop effective strategies. And in about 10 seconds, I'm going to close out the polling question. Okay, and I'm going to share the answer. You guys all said yes. Well, I got news for you. Yes, true. Good data helps businesses develop effective strategies. You guys work very hard for every dime you make, whether it be in sales, getting a check of revenue and putting those numbers together and paying staff and so forth. Without data, you don't really know what's working and not working. You don't know who's buying and who's not buying. So good data is what makes the difference. So you've all heard of the book Good to Great. Well, it's actually true. Good businesses going to great are, you can hire the right people or you can hire the right good people. The good people, the good data, good people. That's what really makes things happen. So that's a very cool thing. We're going to launch another one now. Okay, so now we're talking about good data or government contracting focused data. So this is kind of like a play on the words here. Good data or government contracting focused data takes time to gather, is necessary for strategy development, requires expert analysis, helps define efficient business processes, all of the above. I guess I can say it's not a trick question. So let's see. Okay, there you go, guys. There's the data. So it's a quick storyline. Good data or government contracting focused data takes time to gather, is necessary for strategy development, requires expert analysis, helps define efficient business processes. The emphasis of this question is to really, I guess, dig home as to how important data is. So I'm trying to give you the, the categories of why is it so important. These are big reasons. So I'm going to close this out and move on to the next. But yes, I think you got the point here with regards to, there it is. Y'all picked all of the above. The reality is it is all of the above. And that's because good data does all of those things, no question. Thanks for definitely participating, and we got a lot more coming. So again, if I'm going through the slides really fast, please stop and ask the questions. Abraham will stop us, and we'll kind of hit home on that. And really, we'll definitely be available afterwards as well. Abraham, I'm not sure if you got the PDF yet for the handout, but definitely let me know, and then drop it in that handout section.
I sure will.
Thank you, Abraham. Let's see, where are we? So now we're going to interpret, let's go back, interpreting data for government contracting. So I told you a little story about when I first started with the VA and going through the process. And this is the kind of stuff that was already on their website, and this is the OSBU before I even started. Pharmaceuticals and medical and surgical supplies, perishable substances, equipment supplies, building construction. I mean, what does that tell you exactly? To me, it tells me nothing. It just says this is, and a lot of other things. So the question was, what does the VA buy? What does the VA buy in Michigan? But what does the VA buy? Well, this had to live with, I had to live with the data group. And some people understood the concept and some people didn't, but it's like, well, why do you got to be with these guys all the time? Well, because if the government in registering in SAM requires you to list your NAICS codes and your product service codes, and your target is your NAICS codes, and contracting officers use NAICS codes to identify a contract, and there's an amount of money associated to that NAICS code and even product service codes, what does that tell you? It means NAICS code and product service codes basically identify expenditures throughout the VA. So we had to know exactly what the VA was buying based on NAICS codes, because believe me, there are a lot more NAICS codes than you see the items on the screen. Top 5 NAICS codes, for example, in Michigan: commercial and institutional building construction, 23.6.220, 33.4.510, 33.9.112, 33.9.113, 54.1.310, architectural services, surgical. You see how one statement in the top 3 or the information just starts breaking down? Now it starts getting interesting. 44 million alone went to construction. 3 million went to manufacturing. 3 million went to surgical medical supply treatment. 3 million, 2 million, etc. I mean, that's a lot of money, or 50 million. It's not, that's nice money. If an average contract is 5 million or 3 million or 2 million, I mean, there's 20, 30 businesses. We talked about 229 of them early on. They could be all set-asides. 10%, 20% of those companies got contracts. Some of them were subcontractors on the bottom of the contract. So maybe 50 companies got contracts, maybe more. But that's the key. That's what data tells you. Where do you fit in? And believe me when I say, I believe you when you say how hard it is, because it's not easy. Government contracting is lucrative, but it's not easy, and don't expect it to be. But when you get those contracts and you stay with it, believe me, it's super awesome. It's a great feeling, because you've been chosen as one of the very important companies to service the government. They believe in your product, they believe in your service, and most importantly, they believe in you. That's all about relationship building. So know the VA in Michigan. Let's start from the beginning. Just gathering data, information, VISNs, click on here, click on there. What is this going? Where is that going? Who's buying what? So you see the VISN lines and so forth. Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, you guys are in Michigan. Oh, you guys are in VISN 10. So this is where we start. What does the VA buy in Michigan in terms of advanced knowledge? Let's break it down even further. So I showed you guys simple data a few slides ago. NAICS Code, top 5, top 10 type of industry. Now look how deep it gets. Ann Arbor, Detroit. I grew up in Detroit. Battle Creek, been there. Saginaw, been there. Iron Mountain, don't know where that is, but look, it breaks down even further. This is why data is so tedious, because it keeps going. It tells you the VHA, National Acquisition Center, Office of Procurement Acquisition Logistics, Detroit, VHA, Veterans Health Administration, National Acquisition Center, VBA, Veterans Benefits Administration. There was money spent in different offices in that city. So data breaks down even further. But I just wanted to give you an idea that this is how important data is when you look at it like this on the back end, it's like, wow, didn't know that. No, we just want to go to SAM, do a search for a contract and win a contract. But why can't we win contracts? I don't understand the frustration behind why can't we win contracts? Because this is what goes on behind the scenes right here. So they're breaking this down to identify how much money we're spending, what our budget is, who's the best company to be able to fulfill this. And if there's 17 companies or 6 companies or 3 companies that we have to choose from, we have to choose the right one. Well, have they ever heard of you before? Have they ever seen you before? Have you ever shaken hands or called them or done a Zoom with them before? Do you know who won the contract before? So you can talk to the company that won and say, hey, we'd like to be a subcontractor. More importantly, we can offer you more value to your customer. Not, we want, but we can offer you value. And that's how important data is, because it starts building the right questions and the right paths. Know your customer, Michigan VISN 10. Here's some information based on this. So who are you going to call now that you have the contact information? This is not a trick question, but to an extent, it could be. Who are you going to call with regards to knowing contact information? No one yet. What? What does that mean? You need to know the right answers to your own questions that you ask yourself. Okay? And knowing your answers to your customer, knowing the answers to these questions is knowing the customer. It's a result of integrated VISN 10 is part of the whole conglomerate of VISNs around the country. Comprised of 10 medical centers, so there's 10 centers there, okay, in the independent Columbus, Ohio, ambulatory clinic, and a network of 63 community-based outpatient clinics. So if we're talking about VISN 10 as a whole, okay, and the component of Michigan, let's look at the customers there. VISN 10 provides personalized, proactive, patient-centered care to more than 685,000 veterans throughout the lower peninsula of Michigan alone. So that's a lot of patients in just a small amount of area. And of course, we're talking about veterans. And this number is growing, so it's not like it's a small number. You can imagine the doctors and the nurses and the training staff and the on-call staff and the ones that are still doing training and so forth. So there's a lot of people to deal with. But you got to still know your customer, know who they are. Cold calling and asking, hey, what do you buy? What is it that I can sell to you that you buy, that you'll buy from me, is not the way to do it. So more research. And the key is more research and more research and more research. So what's the difference between this and this information here and this? This is what tells you the contact information and the different hospitals and clinics and areas and so forth. Here's a quick story. I did a call with a company late last year that did business in Arizona. They're buying our product. They are doing all kinds of good stuff, and things are doing great. We went to was it Wyoming, or we went to Utah, and we did Colorado. We went to Colorado, had a meeting with the people in the VA, and said how good our product was doing in Arizona, and it's in the hospitals. And they said, well, that's great, but why should we buy it? We don't know anything about it. So I asked the person behind the company, I said, well, how successful is your product in the clinics in Arizona? He said, well, I don't know that yet. I said, well, how can you not know that yet? How have you talked to the doctors who are using the product? What do they say about it? What are their testimonials? I don't know yet. Well, they should be the ones substantiating your product in terms of use in the hospital, the clinic, and that data should be used to interpret to the people in Colorado and beyond. I mean, someone in one area may not buy the same thing only because they don't know what the success is. If it's an FDA regulated product, if it's an EPA regulated product, if it's a regulated product that's passed the certifications, that's one thing. But if you're introducing a product to a clinic, and a doctor happens to bring it in, or the contracting officer in the clinic buys, they have a purchasing card, they can buy something for under a couple $1,000s without going through the acquisition process. But the point is that do you want to sell one of what you're selling, or do you want to sell hundreds or thousands of them? So it's a strategy of who you talk to, and it's all about research. This is the tedious time of just doing research and data, research data and research data and research, and just keep looking at it. And then once you know this stuff, the foundation will really come together strong because you know what to build underneath your feet. That's a big key. We have administrations and offices. So when you click on one of the links of the map, for example, you go right to the different clinics, you go to the different hospitals, you go to the different areas and departments, and that's key in the city of where you're working. Benefits Administration, Detroit Regional Office, National Cemetery, Veterans Health Administration, medical centers, outpatient clinics. I mean, there's money to be, there's services to be offered. So now let's go to the next question. You're going to get this on your screen. So this is simple. Call the first number you find without knowing what to say. True or false? Come on, people. Call the first number you find without knowing what to say. All right, I'm going to close this out in about 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I'm going to share with you the results. And I'm going to say, you're all right. You're all correct. Absolutely not. Call the first number you find without knowing what to say. False, 100%. Do not call the first number that you find. And unless you're doing one thing, you're just fact finding in terms of what is your process for, I have this type of thing and I just want to get a couple ideas of your process if it's not clear. I've done that with the VA's, what is it, the VCS Veteran Canteen Service, for example. Several years ago, I called them up and said, hey, so I'm Tarek and I'm with the Small Business Office, and what exactly is your process for businesses doing business with you guys? Well, first thing they said was, we don't adhere to the FAR because we're like like groceries or Kmart or Walmart or Costco. We're retail, so we have buyers that buy product and we sell. We're not in line, or we're not held by the same acquisition regulations as the federal government is. I said, great. So things like that, you kind of get some inside, discussion points and so forth. But if you call them up for contracting scenarios right away without really knowing what what they're buying and so forth, that's the biggest piece. We're going to talk about federal retail in February 15th with regards to information referencing, different resources available and what that means. It's a whole different world, and there's different requirements and expenditures. But again, it's a different world to open you up in terms of that, if it's an option for you to take. So I'm going to go into another question. Knowing how to interpret the data is then gathering the data. Now, this is not a trick question. Okay, I see. Knowing how to interpret the data is less important, is more important, is equally important. Well, you need to know how to find the data. And then you need to know how to interpret the data. So you kind of ask yourself, is one more important than the other, or are they equally as important? And that's probably the biggest key. Where are we in terms of importance? And the question's not meant to trip you guys up. It's meant to make you think of how important data is. Because you can't interpreting bad data will give you bad decision making. Interpreting good data will give you really great decision making capabilities. But where do you get the data? How do you interpret it and so forth? Those are big key questions. Gonna close this in about 10 seconds. 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last questions. And now I'm going to share with you. So many of you went to equally, and some of you went to more. So let's talk about knowing how to interpret the data is more important than gathering the data. So if you gather data, knowing how to interpret the data is more important than gathering the data. So if you think about that, I'm sure you're already saying, yeah, well, how is it more important? You have to know how to, gather the data first. So I think you got that. I think you've got that. Definitely, they are equally as important. It wasn't meant to be a trick question, but it was kind of asked to see if you're thinking about it in terms of the data. Knowing how to interpret data is equally important as gathering the data. So they're equally as important, and that's the key. So let's do a crash course and deep dive right into the data. Okay, so if you're not familiar with Excel and pivot tables and so forth, that's fine, because data is a very tricky situation and it's time consuming. That's a big piece. It's time consuming because you have to pull the data, you have to know what to look for, pull it down, pull it apart, and then kind of look at it. So you're looking at here, we're looking at NAICS codes in terms of commercial institutional building, electronic apparatus manufacturing, and then let's identify some product service codes. So it goes even further, okay, with regards to that. If you look at the bottom of the slide, Y1DA or Z1DA, you're talking about 6515. So when you look at contracts, awarded contracts, you'll see that based on the awardee and the contracting officer and the NAICS code and the contract and that. So when you look at the product service code, you actually can identify the exact product or the exact service that's being procured. And that's a big piece of it, because a lot of businesses start second guessing their NAICS code. And I mean, you can interpret the NAICS code as best as you can, but I mean, while it may seem difficult to do so, it's as obvious as it can possibly be, because there are variations of 2 or 3 NAICS codes per group, and that's all it can be. So if you were to see a low procurement dollar area with your NAICS code, then what you're doing is you're offering something unique. Okay, you have to look at it that way. If you change your NAICS code or you alter the service you provide because of that, yes, you can add value to the NAICS code, but you look at the primary. When we teach capability statements, do not put more than 2 or 3 NAICS codes on your capability statement. If you put 10 or 15, they're not going to know, which one you're an expert at. You're going to be an expert at, jack of all trades, but expert at nothing. And then when you're faced with the question, well, which one is your NAICS code? Which one is your primary one? Unless you make it the only red one, red font one there, and everything else is, black, you're not going to know the answer to the question. And that's going to be like you don't even know your own NAICS code, what your primary NAICS code is. Well, we do a lot of things. Well, which is it that you do well? Which is, you do best? And that's the key of selling to the government, especially Michigan, especially the VA, all of them. So we break it down even further. So now we've taken this information, okay, with this information. Oh, look at that. It's contact information. So you've taken one NAICS code and you've broken it down even further. You find out who the construction company is, where they are. City, there's a phone number, right? There you go. And you see how much money they spent. So you're looking at 44 million spent in this NAICS code, but look at this company. This company got a nice little check for, 545,000. This company, RB Construction got 1.6 million. So you see where I'm going with this, is that it's not just one contract for the whole state. It's many small contracts. And I'll give you a quick example of this too. In Osnabu, when the rule of 2 came out and things changed immediately, when it was upheld by the Supreme Court back in 2014-15, and it was based on the Kingdomware Technology Company, and stating that, hey, there should be 2 or more STVOSBs, VOSBs that should be looked upon for research first before a contract is awarded. And if in fact the company can perform the work, it should be set aside for that small business, and then awarded that small business. And the Supreme Court upheld an already existing rule. So they broke down. There was one contract. There was one contract for the whole office, like I think 9 or 10 teams, and it was one company had the whole contract. After the ruling came out, the new contract became separate contracts for each team. So instead of having one company having all the contracts, you had 10 companies having 10 contracts. Sometimes it makes it more difficult to work with your colleagues, because you have to kind of go through the functional, up and down teeter-totter approach. You talk to your manager talks to your director goes and talks to that director talks to the manager talks to the team member, and so forth. So it took a while to really get a good handle on that type of thing. But the more important thing is that there's a lot of small contracts out there. And that's why when we look at simplified acquisition threshold contracts, those are 25,000 to 750. So that means it's less red tape for you to win an awarded contract. And those are out there. Unfortunately, been asked this before. I even asked GSA and SAM and the Federal Help Desk and so forth as to why isn't there like a button that you can check and say, okay, I'm looking for simplified acquisition contracts. And unfortunately, it doesn't do that because it doesn't list the contract by price. Because a lot of it is a bidding process. But if there was a way that contracting officers knew like their budget is no more than $750, they could say, okay, it's a simplified acquisition threshold type contract option. But that's not for me to decide. I would have loved to implement it for you guys because it would make things a lot easier. But again, it just takes away from the bidding process, and unfortunately, it requires still some homework. But here you see some of the, how deep the data goes. And then when you're talking about the different, so we go deeper into the NAICS Code of 236220, and we have 3,905,000 in sales. ADA, here's the name of the company, NZR Corporation, product service code, and then phone number. Just how data is interpreted and how you're able to organize it. And that's what's key. So we have the DUNS, we have the name of the company, commercial and building, institutional building construction, total obligation. And then it goes even further. So here we go. This is I'm just giving you a quick example, guys, as to how deep the data goes. And this is available. Unfortunately, not everyone's a data expert. And you're not meant to be a data expert. You're meant to talk to people. You're meant to write small reports or reports. You're meant to hire staff. You're meant to have this and that and so on and so on. But believe me, this data stuff is not something, sometimes if you go through this data stuff yourself, it'll take you away from the everyday, day-to-day agendas that you need to focus on. So you'll lose 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks and be that much behind. And before you know it, it happens. So it's important that you really understand how important the data is and to have the right people working on these things. Daniel's Building Construction, Farmington Hills, Michigan. There's a phone number. Look at how much. So the product service code. So in this pivot table, you see 236220, and then you see the column labels in terms of product service codes. So this tells you how much was spent for each service, and that's key. So this is Michigan. Try to emphasize that this is Michigan. This is what exists under your noses right now. Someone is being awarded a contract for some amount of dollar in Michigan in the same department that you offer, the same product you offer, the same service you offer, and you're asking yourself, why isn't it me? Because believe me, they started in this area. They started with data. They started with handshakes. They started with knowing who to contact. They started to be able to answer the questions that they were being asked quickly, and their foundation was built. So the contracting officer and the program director believed in them, had faith in them and confidence in them that they were able to fulfill the requirement of the contract, and they got a contract. So that can be you. It's just going to take time to get you into this place. So now we're going to go into more questions. So this question referring to data, true or false? Gathering data is just one of the many processes needed to review data. Gathering data is just one of the many processes. True or false? All right, I am going to end 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You guys are awesome. So the question is, true or false? Gathering data is just one of the many processes needed to review data. I am happy to report in, ladies and gentlemen, that you all answered true. That tells me and Aaron and all the team staff that's listening that you guys really want to succeed. Because it's not a trick question. It basically says gathering data is just one of the many processes, which is true. There's a whole fundamental system. Sometimes steps are in different places for different companies. And you all really want to hit this, and it's a process. I get asked the $1 million question all the time. How long will it take to get a contract? 6 to 12 months if we're super lucky, but probably 1 to 2 years. Because it takes at least 6 months to build the foundation. I mean, things take time to write, to build, edit, because there's other people involved. Websites have to be right, capability statements have to be right, strategies have to be in place, implementation has to be in place, testing has to be done, trials have to be done. A lot of things have to work in place in order for things to happen. So it takes time. If you are in a financial crunch where you absolutely need a contract right away or your business is going to fall apart, then pull yourself out of the government race right now and focus on building the foundation of your company and your financials in the commercial world. It's a lot easier in the sense of marketing, mass marketing and production and that kind of thing. But in the government world, you know, you have a targeted audience that you can approach, and you figure out of the, you know, you have 500 people you can approach in the commercial world, you have 5 people you can approach in the government world. So you got to be right when you approach those people. And that's the key. So you did the right thing by so that's perfect. So now let's go to finding data. Where do we find data? Thank you all for participating, by the way. It's fantastic to see you all engaged and you understand the importance of this. And again, we're available for any questions, answers, help, guidance, etc. I'm hoping, like I said, I'm hoping Aaron got the PowerPoint. If not, we'll definitely get you a copy with regards to all the attendance today, with regards to that. So you have a copy, contact information, etc. So now what's important? Finding data. Again, we're going to fly through some information. So I'm going to give you at least the basics, quick lesson of foundation basics. So we talked about SAM. Now, for many of you, and I've talked to some people last year, which I find kind of interesting because they wanted to talk like they knew what they were doing, but then someone said, yeah, you know, I just go to VetBizOps to let's go to VetBizOps or you know, to get information. Well, VetBizOps doesn't exist anymore. I'm not sure where you're going to go, but you can go to sam.gov. Now, as far as this is the piece that, yeah, there are some static reports that are already done for you, but when you really want to do the basics, SAM doesn't do the, you know, SAM doesn't do the research that you really want, and in some cases they offer you some information. You can interpret some of the reports. I like to go build ad hoc reports and allow to target the information. So you go to SAM, deal with that. You can also go to USA Spending and find some information based on doing a deep dive in terms of, you know, categories, keywords, fiscal year, and so forth. You can also go to Veterans Affairs website in terms of procurement, acquisition, and logistics to do some data gathering. So we talked about SAM, talked about USA Spending and the VA website in terms of Office of Procurement, Acquisition, and Logistics. So now we're going to jump into a polling question. Yes, it's quick. So the question is, where can you find free government contracting data? Veterans Affairs website, SAM, USA Spending, BNC, which is SAM and USA Spending, or all of the above E. You guys should all have this. My goal is not to give you trick questions and fail you. My goal is to make sure you clearly understand the information. And if you don't, I hope to see a question. Can you repeat that? Can you clarify? About our 10 seconds and I'm going to close it out, but you guys got the handle of it. I'm sure you've heard of like GovTribe and a lot of these pay services and various networks. There are other avenues of paid data, but there are ways that it provides you the information that's a little bit different than one or the other. So it's a matter of understanding how to get data and understanding how to interpret the data. Once you do that out of the free versions per se, then it's better in the sense, once you're able to understand that information from the free services, you're able to understand the questions or the information you're looking at. Say, well, that's not exactly what I'm looking for. I mean, it's close, but I want to answer this question, and it doesn't let me do this with the data. It doesn't let me do that with the data. And that's key too, because you really start understanding how you can manipulate the data for your advantage. So I'm going to close this out, and I'm going to share the answers. There you go. And again, you guys hit it right, nail on the head. All of the above. And that's the key. Now, when you find, where can you find? You said the VA, we said the SAM, we said USA Spending, and it's just about interpreting this data and that data and pulling it together and really understanding, and then understanding the questions you're asking. And then, is it really giving you want a little bit more of this, and you want a little bit more of that? So that's when you start really understanding, and when you look at other avenues, then you get an idea exactly of what what's being shown and what's available to you, and what system provides you what data, and if you want more. And that's a big piece of it. So I'm going to ask you one more question. So the key here is true or false. Gathering data and developing and implementing strategy requires expertise. So let's answer the question. Let's read it again. True or false? Gathering data and developing and implementing strategy requires expertise. Well, you definitely need to know how to do it, where to look for it, interpreting it, and developing strategy. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna close it out, guys. And we're gonna share the results. Regarding the question, I'm hoping I'll take full responsibility for not being clear in terms of the interpretation of the question, but I'm hoping you understood the question in terms of the understanding of how important it is. Now, if you believe it doesn't take expertise, that's wonderful too, just to know how and have your ideas in place and watch videos and go for it. That's fantastic. But interpretation is expertise and $1 million contract, expertise and a $50,000 contract, expertise and a $225,000 contract. So when you want the government to write you a check and to pay your invoice on a monthly basis, they want to make sure they have experts in place. So we hope that you take the mindset that everything you do is based on the interpretation of an expert is doing it, an expert knows it, an expert is reviewing it, an expert is providing the information, etc. Because they want experts. They don't want know-it-alls who miss things here, miss things there, consistently miss the dotted I's, cross the T's, forgot to put a period or a comma. I mean, those are very important little things. And believe me, they add up to the point where, like, hey, after a while, they'll cancel your contract, for cause, for unable to fulfill the requirement of providing good stuff. They're not there to, to correct your mistakes. They're there to guide you and tell you what we need, and you do it, or you provide it. So that's the interpretation of that. So again, I want to thank you with regards to being available and attending today. Still have a few more things for you. So our wrap up, let me see where we are here. Yep. So now we're at the wrap up piece, and we're hoping that after today's presentation and webinar, that you understand the importance of knowing your customer. Based on, you saw how, again, the interpretation of what I showed you was, hey, I didn't realize it breaks down to that piece. When I first started with the VA, you hear the VA in the news, the VA this, the VA that, but what you didn't know is that the VA was 3 program offices or administrative offices, DHA, VBA, NCA. Those are big administrations. So when we heard things about the medical centers and the medical this and the medical that, that was the Veterans Health Administration, but they didn't say that. They said the VA. Then you never heard anything about loans or mortgages or anything like that, or healthcare insurances. That's Veterans Benefits Administration. You never heard anything about the cemeteries except Arlington National Cemetery and so forth. That's the National Cemetery Administration. And then about 9 or 8 different program offices, Office of Information Technology, Construction Management. Each office does buying. It's not just the VA. So that's where the importance of knowing your customer and knowing your competition is, because someone else is selling to them as well. But companies do work together. Getting a contract, becoming a subcontractor to a prime company is just as hard as getting a contract with the VA, because you got to build the relationships and you got to earn trust, and that takes time. You understand the value of the data, understand the importance of organizing data for strategic development purposes, and understand how to use available resources to drive your competitive advantage. We talked about competitive advantage. This is a big part of competitive advantage when it comes to data, and that's a key piece. There's some useful links, but let me go to something here real quick. I'm going to see if I can do this. Okay, I'm going to share. Okay, what I need for you guys to all tell me right now is that you see my screen interpretation-wise. You guys all see my screen? Abraham, can you unmute everyone just to make sure they see my screen? They should be able to see my screen. There we go.
I see it.
I see it.
Okay, great, guys. Now, this is what I talked about in the very beginning. This was, believe me, this was not easy to do. And it was a lot of hours to the point where my role as a consultant and as a trainer, it's my duty to know this stuff. So this is big. This is the big pieces of stuff for me to know, because this is what I do for companies and help companies and understand not just the data, but strategy. And my goal is to offer and work with Aaron and offer the best content available and resources in terms of developing training, because that's what I did with the VA. But it all started with research. Why are you with them all the time? Why are you bugging the data people? Why are you always there? Why are you always there? Why are you always there? Well, it's the data that gives you the knowledge. Then you can make it all pretty. So this is what data looks like when it's all nice and pretty. Now you guys have seen the raw data. And the reason for this, I'm showing you this, is because this is how we look at a different company based on federal sales, where different agencies are buying at different times, not just the VA, but more importantly, look at the timeline. So we're looking at contract timelines with how much money is spent in each month: May, June, July, August, September. You guys know September, right? September 30. For the federal government, it's the end of the fiscal year. So contracts are being signed up here. Look at over here, January, February. Look at January. Nothing basically at the bottom, right? Look where it comes, February, because we just finished the holidays, right? You just finished the holidays, and people are starting to really pay out on the contracts, or the contract date starts, and then it starts to dip down a little bit, right? And then it goes up again in September. So this is called the relationship building time. This is called the strategy time. This is when it starts, and this is when we start interpreting. So that's why it's so important to really understand data. Now, one of the other things is we talk about the top 10. The top 10, for example. So now we start building it even further, and then we interpret data this way. So let's call someone. Let's talk to someone in the company who won the contract. Let's look at who has won and what is next, and really start saying, hey, we want to, okay, for this administration, for that administration, we want to, okay, contact these people so we can start becoming part of their contract. We want to show them that we can do just as much as, here you go, look at this. There's a nice juicy list of companies that won contracts. And you have contact email, and we have different people, you see? So the data is there. The data is there. So it's easy to go to, SAM, put in a search, find a contract, and write a proposal. Fine. But if the company's never heard of you, if the contracting officer's never understood or seen you, they don't know who you are. Okay, so the companies who are now going to SAM or learning before even SAM, okay, other avenues of learning the contracts, the companies who are writing the requirements for the contract with the program directors and the contracting officers to review are the ones who are winning contracts, because they've already done this. They've been through this. The long nights, the long weeks of writing and interpreting and informational gathering and data gathering and interpretations, this is what they do. So now when you see a company saying, oh, they keep winning a contract, well, why do you think they did? Because they did something like this. The days of favoritism, of a friend gave the person a contract, is pretty much over, because those people got fired and canned and so forth back in the 2011, 12, 13, the schemes and so forth. Those days are over. So it's not about favoritism. It's not about, oh, I like them better, I'm going to give them a contract. No. It's about budget. It's about, I'm going to do the lowest price technically acceptable because that's in our budget. We don't need to pay for that. We don't need to pay for this. Everybody thinks doing, money with the government is an open check. Certain agencies, yes, certain agencies, no. But you find that out based on relationship building and data. Data tells you where to go, how to interpret, what they're thinking, why they're thinking, and just getting to know them. And just understanding it, you don't have to memorize it. You just have to get an idea of it and understand pictures. You don't need to know the data behind the scene. You just need to know, okay, like this says this in 2021, we had a lot of money in March. Expenditures, why? It went down to 15 million in June. But we need to see this. We need to see and interpret that. And that's the biggest keys. And that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. So that's the key. So I'm going to go back here. We wrapped up the information. There's some useful links with regards to Rymys Technology Consultants, the company. Hey, my faithful guides, doing business with VA and the procurement readiness reference guides. I'm so proud of these things. I wrote these things. This was part of the research. This is where the research came about. And believe me, it wasn't easy because, I mean, there were directors and team managers and directors and different teams reviewing them. And I mean, they started out at about 120 pages each. That's how much detail there was. But we refined them to the point where it was just, this is all you need to know, the ins and outs, and then you'll find other stuff on your own. But these guides are available to you, and of course, here to interpret. Also, VetBizCentral, a lot of information on the website. Abron and his team have been working tirelessly. I mean, tirelessly to really provide a good drive into the doing business with the VA and the information and the content and the training. So they have a lot of good resources to follow up with. Next, upcoming webinars. We talked about this. Next, we have next week, introduction to VA and GSA federal supply schedules. We have introduction to federal retail sales. This is the VCS, Veteran Canteen Service, Army Air Force Exchange, Navy Exchange, Marine Corps Exchange, Coast Guard Exchange. These are like Walmart's on the base. You have product or services. There's a whole new world that encompasses. And then we go on to what VA buys in Ohio. It's going to be much more, it's going to be as detailed as the Michigan. That's coming February 22nd. We also have additional ones coming with regards to schedules and so forth coming up in Ohio and Indiana. Take us through April. But we want your feedback to see what other trainings that we have not yet given that we can give. And we hope you enjoy like the polling questions and part of the as part of the plan, so we can really engage with you guys and really be part of, you can be part of our trainings in terms of, hey, this is what, we want to make sure you understand the stuff. Again, my contact information for Rymys, you have the phone number, email, website, LinkedIn. I recommend, there's two LinkedIns. There's my personal LinkedIn and the business LinkedIn. The business LinkedIn is also very important to join the community because I post a lot of partnerships and trainings and things that are happening and things that we can do, and the partnerships and the work we do with VetBiz. A lot of things happen there, so you want to keep in touch with both LinkedIn accounts. And I think we can go to questions, Abron, if we have any more.
I am unmuting everyone as we speak. Just about there.
Everybody, let's do a round robin. Let's start 2022 off. This is as great as it started. Keep up the pace.
All right, we can do that. Let's start with Abby. Your mic's on.
Yes, very good presentation. I am a program manager for Wayne State PTAC.
Nice.
Thank
Nice
you for presenting today.
Oh, that's your question? It's our pleasure. It's our pleasure. You're at my alma mater.
Oh, great.
Graduated from Wayne State many years ago. That's fantastic. Abby, based on when you say good presentation, so I mean, does it make sense into your line when you're working with the business community and trying to really reinforce how important things are?
Yes, because my colleague and I, we constantly tell our clients, especially new clients, you have to research, what your capabilities are. We can't just tell you, the government is, what you should do as a business owner. So you have to, explain to them they have to find their niche, because hypothetically being a medical profession is not for everybody. So if the federal government was purchasing, federal supplies or, medical supplies and whatever, and that's not your niche, that's not a good match for you, for your company. So we try to, encourage them to research what they want to do before coming just asking random questions.
That's great information, Abby. And I know, a lot of the businesses think the procurement technical assistance centers, the professionals like Abby, who are working and constantly there in terms of services. My understanding is a lot of it is like volunteer, and a lot of it is being available for them. And as part of the process, they are there to help you guys. They are here to, available to guide you and not do the work for you. And that's one of the biggest things is like, yes, you walk away discouraged, you walk away upset sometimes, but their role is to tell you the truth and tell you up front that you have to research this. Abby, so many times I've been to contracting, like procurement conferences, and you see the same small businesses come at you every 6 months, every year, and it's like, you can feel their frustration, and it's like, look, it's not easy, but it's rewarding, and you just have to do the homework, and it's a lot of work. There's no question, it's a lot of work, but it is rewarding if you really put forth the effort and strategize. Like you say, Abby, find your niche. Find something you're good at. It's the old adage of any business. Find something that you love doing and you're good at, and everything else will fall into place.
All right. Next, we have Andy. Andy, you're unmuted.
Yes, I was wondering, is there I remember you were talking about primes, and I was wondering, is there a way, how did you find like the list of primes for contracts?
Andy, that's a great question. Through a lot of the research, like I showed you some quick contact information with stuff that I was able to do. Those are a lot of the prime contracts too. So as far as your targeted industry, we determine your NAICS code. We look at that, of course, and then you can look in SAM. You just have to pull data because it's not there. It's not just on the face value that, oh, the prime contract is there. But you can say, like the SBA's subnet mask, their subnet they have a database for subcontractors to put their information in based on their what they do and so forth, so prime contract holders can find you. And as far as, so there's the subnet through the SBA, and we talked about prime and sub. We had a training actually months ago about prime and subcontracting, but there's the subnet, and then there's the data mining that I showed you today to find prime contract holders in that sense. So if you're looking at SAM, for example, and you look at awarded contracts, you can go to SAM, you can do that data, that data reports, and pull contracts that have already been awarded, and kind of look at those types of companies too. So if you find a company that that's already been awarded a contract that you can feel very strongly about being a subcontractor to that company, because you can add value to them, not just because you want to be a subcontractor, but you can add value to them. In turn, they can add value to their customer. Then you approach them in the same manner you approach the VA or an agency for a contract. You have to work at it, build a relationship, let them know you exist, and just sometimes they won't take your calls in the beginning, but they eventually will. But it's all in the data.
Persistent.
Thank you.
Yep. And
next we have is it Callie or Kali? You are unmuted. Oh, just left. So next we have Carrie.
I just wanted to make sure that I understood that the handouts will be forthcoming to our email.
Yes, they will. I had been waiting for those to, I'd been waiting for that email. It never came through. But
wow.
as soon as it does, I do have all of your email addresses and I will send it out to you.
Okay, and then one additional question, if I may. You had mentioned something about a GSA marketing webinar, but I didn't see that listed. Was that the February 15th one? That'll be included in that, is that correct?
Let me see. You said the GSA one will be next week.
And that'll talk about marketing your schedule?
Introduction to federal. Yeah, we'll touch base on marketing the schedule. We will touch base on a little bit of the marketing the schedule, and that's, I mean, the biggest thing for marketing the schedule is marketing it as if you have products and services that you want to market.
Okay.
And I think the target is the biggest concern to all schedule holders in marketing is because you remember when you market a schedule, you're marketing the product or service to all the doctors and all the people that would be your target audience.
Right.
So that's how they buy through those products in terms of interpretation. So it's not like a contracting officer buys 100,000 units of your product and distributes them throughout the facilities. It's each facility has to buy that product. So it's
Right.
kind of like the Amazon. Basically, the schedule is like an Amazon. You go to the website, they want to buy, they buy.
Okay.
So yeah,
Thank
we're
you.
going to definitely touch upon the marketing next week, a little bit of it.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, next we have Ira. Ira, you're unmuted. You have any questions for us today, Ira? There we go.
No, sir. No questions today. Greatly appreciated the presentation. And Mr. Abram, I look forward to contacting you shortly.
Thank you very much. Look forward to hearing from you, Ira. Take care. Next, we have Olivia.
Hi, Olivia.
She is unmuted. Maybe we'll come back to Olivia.
Okay.
Next, oh,
Thank
there
you
she
for
is.
the information.
She said, thank you for the information.
Thank you for the information. Very informative.
It's our pleasure. Thank you so much for attending and taking time out of your busy day. We hope to make sure that every webinar provides you with detailed information that helps your business. And we also want to let you know that we are available to assist, as well afterwards. So we're here for you.
Next, we have Rayaja. You are unmuted, Rayaja. Technical difficulty there.
Okay.
All right, let's go on to Tony. Tony, any questions? Any concerns? Let's see here. We've got one. Oh, you can't unmute on your end. All right. Well, thank you, Rayaja. I got it. Got your message. And let's see. Do we have any other?
I'm unmuted now. Can you hear me? This is Tony.
There we go. There's Tony.
Sorry, I couldn't find the little mic. It was off to the side. I had to pull it up because it's on my laptop. Can you provide the web address where you received the information on all the VA prime contracts that have been awarded?
Well, I mean, you can go to sam.gov, Tony. Sam.gov tells you and shows you like different contract awards and awardees. And of course, it's not just one website, it's a few other ones. So you could even look at USA Spending.
Okay.
But if I can show you this, like I said, sam.gov basically is now the FPDS, is now the database. So once you log in here, You go through the process of logging in. Log in, of course, you go into SAM, then you go to data bank here, and then you go to contract opportunities, contract data, and you just kind of just keep looking. Standard reports, and building the process. It's just, like I said, it just takes time, and you go through the whole process.
Okay, super. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, and thank you for the session today.
Pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time today. We hope we see you on future ones.
Thanks.
All right, well, I think that'll do it, Tarek. I think we've got everybody taken care of.
Wonderful. I had a wonderful time presenting the information, Abram, and I hope everyone enjoyed. I'm happy to hear that everyone enjoyed the information.
I think they did. Everyone seemed to be very engaged, especially through the polling questions. And I know that, we time frame here, and you know how I like to try to be as respectful of their time as possible. But thank you once again for providing us with that great information and content. I guess to all of you, as soon as I obtain that information, I will send it out to an email. I'll send the presentation out. I think that's what Tarek was trying to do, get that
Yes.
handout to you guys. So once I get that, I will forward it to you. Until then, I want to thank you all for joining us. Tarek, thank you for being our guest speaker and for providing the information today.
And we look forward to next week, and definitely everyone should be on the email list and getting emails for marketing for next week's presentations as well.
All right.
Happy
All right,
New Year, everyone.
Take care.